Greetings, distinguished guests. I am Teranz, and welcome back to what should be the last episode of Werewolf Heart of the Forest, at least for this series. I may cycle around, come back, visit it again, see if we can't do some things differently, check out different tribes and aspects and all that kind of fun stuff. But with that being out of the way, so yeah, last time we went on a quest to join a tribe, join a pack. I think we learned about what kind of aspect we were, and now let's start the final chapter. Dust to dust. It was one of those blistering summer days when the asphalt melts, the grass withers, and the air smothers those brave enough to step outside. Despite the heat, it felt like the whole village was at a funeral. It was moving. I stood there, surrounded by people weeping over their loss. Looking at the rosaries they clutched in their fists, something tightened in my chest. For a brief, chilling moment, I thought I saw Anya's face among the crowd. But no, I buried her in the barrows myself, and nobody there even knew that she was dead. It was someone else's funeral. Anya was not the reason we gathered in the churchyard. The body of a hunter had been found in the forest. The circumstances of their death were unclear. It was our doing. My doing, and the death had tipped the scales. The urge. Since the deaths, I'd started seeing shadowy figures, their faces lurking in the corner of my eye. Were they just figments of my imagination, or my own pack of hungry spirits following me, waiting for my mistake? I could feel the tension seething around me. This funeral had pushed the community. They were weary and frightened by the recent disappearance of an activist in the forest. To the edge. The world was watching. The press had swarmed the funeral like flies. I could hear them squawking about how both sides of the conflict were escalating the situation. The police had cordoned off the funeral and were aggressively searching and detaining any activists they noticed. It had become political. Suddenly, Pushcha Białowieża had become politically charged and one of the hottest places to be in Poland. And it wasn't only local politicians and activists from both sides who caught wind of the commotion. The Minister of Environment himself had driven down to the village to attend the funeral. He was standing next to the priest conducting the ceremony, surrounded by police and what looked like a handful of bodyguards. The coffin went down and the crowd stirred. Everyone started lining up to throw a handful of dust on the coffin or put flowers on the grave. I found myself face to face with Bartek. I got swept up by the crowd and found myself face to face with Bartek. There should be another coffin here, because we both know that she's dead. He looked me in the eyes. I really liked Anna, you know. I froze. It all has something to do with you, and I will find out what. I said nothing. I didn't know what to say. Bartek looked me in the eyes. Funny thing, it's like all the strange things started happening as soon as you all came here. I looked over his shoulder at the crowd. It was clear that many people felt the same way he did, and the minister knew how to use that sentiment. I listened in disbelief. I watched in disbelief as the priest handed him the mic. He wasn't someone you could call a good speaker. He repeated some platitudes, but it was clear he had only come to show his face and to tighten the leash on the local logging companies. The crowd listened silent. It was our move. I realized that the conflict was only going to escalate. Even if the forest had abandoned us, we still had a chance to end the logging. You're ready to defend ourselves. The last stand. It was high noon. The sun was at its most merciless, and the world was almost white with heat. The air smelled of herbs, bark, and tree sap. Insects buzzed lazily in the high grass, stunned by the summer sun. We were ready for war. We lounged in the shadows of the trees, resting after a busy night. We were ready for war. I warmed up. I was restless, repeating my warm-up routine over and over. There was a fight coming. The fight was inevitable, and I wanted to be prepared. There weren't so many of us, but everyone in the clearing knew why they were there. The forest was watching us. The forest was watching us. Every time a gust of wind was bringing the wet smell of the forest to my nostrils, I felt her strong, steadfast presence. She knew that we were doing everything in our power to save her. I thought about my family. For centuries, my family served the forest, burning villages and hunting down people who dared to hurt her. Now I was the last Garu of my lineage. What legacy did I want to leave behind? I looked at the harvesters. I looked at the shiny new harvesters lurking across the clearing. Loggers milled around them like ants over a disturbed anthill. The pressure was almost palpable, and tempers were flaring. I looked at my pack. Everyone knows what to do, Olga asked, looking at my pack. I'll keep the security guards occupied, and I'll guard the forest perimeter, growled Daniel. He glanced at the weasels. The weasels were in their position among the protesters as agreed. That left the cops to me. I was ready to fight them. I'll deal with the cops, I said, and then we will burn the machines. That's not the plan, Olga reminded me with a bitter expression. Keep your eyes on the cops and stay put. Cops were gathering. Cops were gathering in increasing numbers, and I noticed some SWAT teams joining them. Something was up. It was apparent they were waiting for something. Then it reached boiling point. It reached boiling point when the minister arrived for a photo op. I had a bad feeling about all this. My stomach churned when I saw the black SUV. I had a bad feeling. My pulse raced. He posed and played the great statesman while the poor journalist took pictures and asked pre-arranged questions. Just another day in the media circus. In hindsight, you could argue that what happened next was set a chain of events in motion that had a life-changing consequence for many. But it all started earlier. It all started centuries earlier when the first wolf cubs were stolen and mourning wolf mother asked my foremothers for help. Everything that happened next, the burning villages, my grandfather escaping to America, my mother running away from my father, my return to the village was a direct consequence. The members of my sept had already moved to their positions and I had my part to play. It was our chance to start negotiations. Olga raised her eyebrow. If you think we're talking any sense into them, now's the fucking time. She grabbed me by the elbow and literally dragged me across the clearing to where the minister and his people were standing. I've got this, I said bluntly, yanking my arm free. I know what to do, I snapped at Olga. Stop treating me like a cub. Can't do anything, replied Olga. Just watch. Minister, she yelled. Do you have a moment to talk about what's really going on in the forest? I caught his gaze. He looked at us coldly, like we were vermin. His eyes were distinctly dark and lifeless, like a shark, I thought suddenly. No, he said, smiling. We don't talk to terrorists. He smelled of the worm, and I'd gladly have bitten his face off, but we had bigger fish to fry. I wrapped my arms around Olga's chest and pulled her back before she could jump at him. Save your strength, I barked. We'll find another way. We went back to regroup. The activists, humans, and werewolves alike listened as we told them what had happened. The atmosphere was tense. We started our preparations. We prepared ourselves for the worst case scenario. Okay, let's move it, I heard someone shout. Move it, people, move it. You know what to do. And they did. There's a lot of laughter and friendly pushing, chains clinking, and some people darted up the trees to seat themselves in the branches. I was assigned to the human chain. Man, I wish I had more power. I helped form the human chain. Hey, I heard. Get those arms behind you. That's it. Attaboy. It hurts, moaned a man's voice. Next time, do some yoga beforehand, huh? That's it, people. Open your hearts so you can hold your wrists behind your back. So I locked my wrists. Threaded my arms through the arms of the people to my left and right, and then grabbed my wrist behind my back. It was tight on my shoulder, hot and very sweaty. Then we waited. We sat down, one long human chain, and watched the loggers and police as they approached, and then stopped. I tried to take short breaths to avoid their stench. It was useless. The minister looked at us with his dark, lifeless eyes. The police were regrouping and getting into formation. Their shields were ready. They were wearing masks. I could hear the unmistakable sound of a gun being cocked. I braced myself. Fuck, I spat, and then tear gas canisters started to rain down on us. The police came through the smoke like a horde of demons, kicking and beating protesters. Beating the protesters sat on the ground, yanking them away, and breaking the human chain. I felt a hand grab my shoulder and I acted on reflex. I bit it. Wrong button. What am I trying to? There we go. Alright. I sank my teeth into the flesh, my mouth filled with blood, and the officer screamed. The final battle. When the real fight began, the adrenaline kicked in and the world split into freeze frames. Charged at the loggers. Was starting Glabro. I was Glabros, wolfish, strong, scary. I charged at the loggers. Saw a young man in work overalls staring at me with a terrified expression. I had axe raised in his hands. I slashed him with my claws. He went down in a fountain of blood. Cops were coming. Cops were running our way, shouting orders, batons raised, faces red with anger. Kicked their asses. I roared, drew my claws, and made them bleed. They were too scared, too slow to defend themselves. Turned and faced the SWAT team. Probably should have changed, but a SWAT team appeared in full riot gear, their faces grim behind their visors. Their guns ready to pepper us with rubber bullets. They stopped them from advancing. I looked at the wall of shields again, grated my teeth, and started lashing at them with blows. I remember their angry faces, my claws swatting away their batons, the cloud of pepper spray, the burning of my wounds. I stood my ground, and they stopped advancing. I assessed the situation. I looked around the battlefield. The situation wasn't looking good. Police were pushing forward, and the protesters were retreating. It wouldn't be long before they were cornered, beaten, and dragged off. We needed something to turn the tide. Pointing at the retreating minister. When all hope of a follow-up with a group of happy citizens was lost, the minister of the environment made a break for his car. He reeked of fear, greed, and the worm. I realized that he never really saw the forest, just cubic meters of wood, votes, lobbyist checks, and personal gain. It was time to act. And I was fed up with overthinking it. I was Gaia's soul, and it was time to do what the spirits demanded. So I killed him because I had no other option. I started running. The bodyguards raised their guns. Bullets hurt. I was Krenos, the war form. I roar. I'm an 8-foot tall killing machine. Bullets punctured my body and it hurts, but I don't stop until I reach him. He looks at me, drooling, crying for help. Bite his face off. I look at him straight in the eyes and bite his face off. Suddenly, I realize I am bleeding, and my wounds aren't healing anymore. There's pain and darkness. Alright, pain. I lay there on the ground, my face buried in the grass. Blood was gushing from my wounds, and the more I tried to use my hands to stop the bleeding, the more it seemed to flow. I coughed blood. I coughed bubbles of blood and air was coming from my mouth. Was this it? Was this how it was all going to end? On the grass, in an ancient forest, in a place I'd never seen, among people I didn't really know? My thoughts were so slow. I remembered. We'd come to a conclusion. A fragile armistice that would stop the logging and save the forest. The forest was safe. Logging stopped. Achieved goal. The forest was safe for now. There was hope. There was always hope. What had happened to the others? I briefly wondered what had happened to the others. Then I closed my eyes. Story is almost over. It's a good time. Alright. Young White Wolf Mother. 1 glory, 1 honor, 3 wisdom. Health is impaired. Stop the logging. Alright. 1 friendly with the priest. Neutrals. Sorry. The grass will heal all wounds. It will cover everything, I thought, no matter how high we pile the bodies. If we let her work, no one will remember the carnage. It will grow on my bones and my body will become a mound in the forest. That was my legacy. There was fire, there was a village, and there was generation after generation, their bodies littered throughout the forest, covered with grass and ferns. The warriors who had protected the land and died for it. I was the last, and then our story would come to an end. I heard a voice. Come, child, I heard a voice and felt a warm, wet touch on my cheek. Come. Was it worth it? I rolled onto my back and opened my eyes for the last time. The night sky above me was filled with a gigantic wolf made of stars. She had the moon between her eyes. A tear rolled down my cheek. She licked my face again. Come, she said. And I went. And I went. The end. So I got the martyr ending. I died fighting for the forest. Alright. You have finished Heart of the Forest. Cubs gather around the fire and listen to the story of Maia Borodich, known among the Garu as Watura of the Black Furies, the urge of the Morning Wolf Mother Pack. She was wise and her prophecies accurate. Maia died fighting for Puzessa. Remember her in your songs, because her death was not in vain. The forest was safe, at least for a while. The first protests against the logging of the forest took place in 2016. The game was loosely inspired by those events. All characters and events are entirely fictitious. Continue. Alright, well, looks like that was Werewolf Heart of the Forests. I am going to options. Alright, apparently I can't mute that. So anyway, thank you all for watching, and I'll see you next time with like I said, probably Vampire the Masquerade Redemption, but I'll figure out what game is next. Anyway, thanks for watching, and I will see you all next time.